It is a reminder that even in the darkest times, the human capacity for compassion and courage can shine through. Tragedy turns questions we may often wonder about from hypothetical to real, and it becomes a moment in history, a shared experience that bonds us forever. We often come to realize that in time of crisis, the most essential things in life are our family, our friends, and our health. And in the wake of adversity in our country and in our world, we're reminded of the importance of community. Being a community doesn't just mean existing alongside each other. It means having the backs of your neighbors, peers, and fellow human beings. It means lifting up one another when we fall and speaking out in the face of disparities. This isn't just a school, it's a community. And you don't just leave school with a diploma. You leave here with the opportunity to take the companionship, the sense of community we all build together, and use it as a model to change a world that can be every bit as beautiful as it is unfair if you choose to build it that way. How we choose to spend our time matters, and the power you have to affect change is strong. So how will you spend your time? How will you empower your community? 2 years ago, I moved here to Arizona, making my way to a new home in a new state, working at a new school with a new group of students to teach. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was in tears most days that summer while cleaning out my apartment and packing up my classroom. Not because I was about to be living in 115-degree weather, but because I had a hard time processing the thought of leaving my students, my community. I felt guilty and worried that I wouldn't feel the same sense of familia, the word commonly used at my previous school, here at PCDS. However, on my first day here, I met these two wonderful young ladies sitting to my right, along with many of the students sitting in front of me, who all welcomed me immediately into their community. And I quickly realized just how lucky I was to be here. I feel so fortunate 2 years later to be standing up here introducing my very first senior speech for Ava Giffen. Ava doesn't know this, but she actually reminded me a lot of one of my old advisory students when I first met her. And something about this similarity helped me to feel more at home from the beginning. I found it fitting that after our year of Algebra 2 was sadly coming to an end, I discovered that Ava would now be in my advisory class for her junior and senior years. I could not have been happier. Ava is just about as wonderful as they come. She cares not just about her learning and her performance as a student, but she is someone who cares deeply about others, her friends, her family, and the world around her. This was evident to me when she decided to change her entire senior speech last week to talk about a community, a home that is so important to her. When I asked Ava if there's anyone she would like me to contact to say a few words about her, she thought carefully about this and provided me with a long list of friends. You see, even though Ava knew I couldn't possibly include all of the beautiful comments and stories I ended up receiving from her friends, it was important to her that everyone felt included and loved just by being asked. Taylor says, quote, Ava is hilarious, kind, supportive, and I love to be around her, end quote. Serena says that no matter what, Ava can always put her in a better mood. Kayla echoes this sentiment when she says that Ava is the first person to leave a stuffed animal at your door or bring over a bunch of cookies if you're going through a hard time. Jahanvi deeply cherishes her friendship with Ava, while Tabitha and Chloe both feel grateful to have grown up with her. Jacques says that Ava is incredibly loyal to her friends and is unbelievably kind to everyone she meets, while Kayla doesn't know what she would do without Ava by her side. Lene says, quote, if you have an Ava in your life, do not take it for granted, end quote. According to Ava's speech partner, Winter, quote, Ava has been my best friend for 12.5 years, very specific. Even though she didn't like me in kindergarten, I sucked up to 5-year-old Ava until she would let me be her friend. And I'm so glad I did, because I wouldn't trade our friendship for the world. She is genuinely the most loyal person I've ever met, and I admire how she will always be there for you no matter what is going on in her own life. She is like a sister I never had, end quote. And lastly, from one of my advisory graduates, and someone important in Ava's life, Armand, says, quote, Ava, this is just the beginning of your extraordinary life story, and I have no doubt that you will inspire many, just as you've inspired me. I can't wait to witness it and be by your side through it all. I'm so proud of you, end quote. Both Ava and Winter are in a very unique and important position today as the first members of the school to speak to you all after a very difficult week for many. I encourage you all to listen to each other, support each other, and keep building upon that community that is so strong here at PCDS. I am so proud to introduce to the stage Ms. Ava Goodman.
I had a great speech prepared for you. I was going to talk to you about my lifelong struggle with celiac disease, but it seems so meaningless now. I am scared, I am sad, I am worried, and I am heartbroken. I am scared for my cousins, aunts, and uncles who live just outside Tel Aviv. I am sad for all the innocent civilians who have been killed. I am worried about the hostages and their future. I am heartbroken for the families of the victims. This past Friday night, I attended Shabbat dinner. I'm a little ashamed to admit to you that this is not something that I do regularly, but this time I felt compelled to go. I needed to reinforce my connection to Israel, and my synagogue was the best place to do it. Synagogues are houses of worship, places that should be sacred and safe, yet there were police officers everywhere. They were in the parking lot, on the sidewalk, at the front door, in the sanctuary. This was because the FBI announced that they were going to be monitoring threats to the Jewish community, but each synagogue was responsible for its own security. During the service, we recited Mi Shabirach, the healing prayer, for all of the innocent mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, and grandparents from both Israel and Gaza who have been impacted by the war. The prayer concludes with, quote, "May God be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived," end quote. The entire congregation was crying, including me. You might be wondering why any American should care so much about the war in Israel. After all, there are no rockets flying overhead in Paradise Valley. There is no risk of going to a music festival and never coming home. I live in America, so why should I be so concerned about Israel? America may be my home, but Israel is my homeland. It is the homeland for Jews across the world because it is the last spot on earth where Jews can be safe. After thousands of years of persecution, genocide, and discrimination, Israel has been the only place left for Jews to be unapologetically free. If you think America is safe for Jews, you are wrong. Anti-Semitism has always been here, just beneath the surface. Now, hate is coming out from the shadows and is practiced in plain view. For the last 2 years, for example, a local hate group has been leaving flyers on the doorsteps across Maricopa County calling for the extermination of Jews. During the high holidays last month, 10 threats were called into Phoenix area synagogues. Last year, a professor at the University of Arizona was murdered simply because his killer thought that he was Jewish. And just last week, an Arizona legislator posted a tweet accusing Israel of being a terrorist organization. And while all of these examples are local, the same story is playing out in communities across the country and throughout the world. This is not new to Jews. Jews have been enslaved and persecuted for centuries. Jews have been expelled from biblical countries like Samaria and Babylon to contemporary countries including Austria, England, Haiti, Hungary, Italy, Spain, Switzerland, and even the United States. In 1862, General Ulysses S. Grant rounded up all the Jews in Kentucky, Mississippi, and Tennessee and forced them to leave his military district on foot. That was only 160 years ago. Anti-Semitism is history's longest prejudice. The Holocaust was supposed to be the final solution to eliminating the Jews. It was a state-sponsored genocide that murdered 6 million Jews only 3 generations ago. Jews who fled Europe during World War II found refuge in modern-day Israel, which was controlled by Great Britain. After the war ended, the Allied powers declared Israel to be an independent Jewish state. Finally, our people had a safe place to call home and fulfill the dream of Zionism. To be a Zionist means believing Jews have the right to nationhood, self-determination, and security, just like any other people. And it must be said, just like the Jews have the right to self-determination, so do the Kurds, Uyghurs, Chechens, and yes, Palestinian Arabs. Israel is an example of modern national ambition that should be a model for other peoples. On my last trip to Israel, I had the honor of spending time with my 94-year-old great-uncle, Yehuda Bacon. Yehuda spent 2 years in the infamous Auschwitz concentration camps. His mother, father, and 2 sisters were murdered in the gas chambers, yet Yehuda survived. He survived a 3-day death march through the woods and was ultimately rescued by liberators from the United States Army. On that same trip to Israel, I walked through the cobblestone streets of Jerusalem and could feel the connection to my ancestors. Even though the Hebrew language was effectively outlawed for 2,000 years by host countries, here I was, walking through our ancestral homeland, proudly displaying my Hebrew name around my neck. I felt like this small, seemingly insignificant gesture was honoring my ancestors' struggles. My identity as a Jew gives my life shape and purpose. My Jewishness means leading a moral and ethical life, pursuing fairness, justice, and peace, of sacrificing to help those who need help and comfort those who need comfort. I care about unhoused Americans, both because I'm an American who believes that a home should be a right, not a privilege, and also because as a Jew, we are taught to embrace the wanderer and the impoverished. We bear the responsibility to welcome the stranger, because we were once the stranger in a foreign land ourselves. There's even a commandment in the Torah, Tikkun Ulam, that instructs us to repair an imperfect world. We have an obligation to not observe wrongfulness, but to act on it and make a change. We have these responsibilities no matter where we are, the United States, Israel, or other countries abroad. At its best, Israel represents many of the same foundational beliefs that Americans have: equity before the law, the rule of law, equal opportunity for self-governance, and the pursuit of happiness. These are Israel's founding principles as well. And it is why Americans, not just Jewish Americans, feel a deep connection to this tiny democracy. That is not to say Israel is perfect. There are some policies of the current government that I don't agree with. It's okay to disagree with the government, but it's an entirely different issue to deny its right to exist. Israel is so important to me because it signifies the rebirth of the Jewish people. It embodies all that was lost and rediscovered, the tears shed and the triumphs celebrated, what was saved and destroyed throughout the turbulent history of the Jewish people until their return home. Israel is not just a homeland. It is a place that lives so strongly in my heart. But all of it was attacked last week. I pray for peace and an end to the killing of innocent civilians on both sides. Thank you.
Winter first approached me with a draft of her speech 2 weeks ago. It was on the theme of not judging a book by its cover. That speech isn't the one Winter will be giving today, as she'll explain. But in an unexpected way, Winter has proven the thesis of that original speech. I've been lucky to teach Winter in 2 classes, classical political philosophy and international relations. She's the kind of student teachers call quietly brilliant, a sharp writer, a careful reader, diligent and thoughtful. The one who tends towards internal processing in class, not the first to shout out and answer her idea, but the one who will quietly mull and then join the discussion with a powerful interjection that shows the depth of her thinking. This is the Winter I knew in class, but as I've learned, it's just part of the picture. There's a moment in Tolkien's Fellowship of the Ring where the brave hobbit Frodo laments the times he's living in and the role it has thrust upon him. I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf. So do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. I have no doubt that Winter wishes she could give her original speech, that last week's atrocity hadn't happened, that, as Frodo said, it hadn't happened in our time. What do we do at the time that is given to us? Do we give in to fear and hatred? Do we turn on each other, or do we stand up for each other and for our common humanity? I am proud that Winter has not chosen to shy away from the burden of these times, but will instead speak to them with a courage and conviction that would make Gandalf proud. Winter's speech partner, Ava, writes about her. When I accomplish something, she will be the first person to celebrate me and make me feel special. Winter is so caring to her friends. Her kindness leaves a lasting impact on anyone she meets. She is my sister and was practically adopted into my family. There's nobody I'd rather travel the world with. I'm so grateful to have Winter as a forever best friend in my life. I'm not prepared to be in college without her, but she makes my life complete, and I always rely on her for advice or to cheer me up, even though making plans with her is nearly impossible. She's my best friend, second sister, and biggest supporter. I couldn't imagine a better person to go through life with. Jacques writes, Winter is one of the most trustworthy and charismatic people I know. I am so lucky to be her friend, even if she risks my life every time she drives. Renee says, the thing I love most about Winter is how real she is. She doesn't change herself for anyone. I used to make fun of her a lot, and so did everyone else, for her weird and funny taste in music. She only played the same 2 songs every day. Do It Again by, I have no idea how to say some of these names, N.L.E. Choppa, and Holy Smokes by Trippie Redd. Every time I would get in her car, I couldn't escape it. Winter just genuinely always brings up my mood every time I'm around her, and I don't know what I would do without her, and I'm so glad she is one of my best friends. I picked these comments, and I love these comments, because for one, I think they're sweet and adorable, but also because they remind me of Winter's first draft speech, that one that was lighthearted, the goofy one, the one that historical circumstances did not allow her to deliver. The goal of terrorism is to strip that goofiness, that lightheartedness, that laughter from human life, to inflict such unbearable pain on individuals that they will accede to whatever that group demands. Groups like Hamas believe that coexistence between diverse groups of humanity is impossible, that the solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict isn't to be found in negotiation, compromise, and mutual recognition, but in an apocalyptic war in which one side will be triumphant forever and the other side will be wiped from the pages of history. What I see in front of me is Hamas's worst nightmare. I see atheists, agnostics, Sunni Muslims, Shiite Muslims, conservative Jews, Reform Jews, Druze, Sikhs, Hindus, Protestants, and Catholics. I see best friends who trace their heritages from East Africa all the way to central Mexico, or the Punjab, Ireland, Germany, Poland, Syria, Iraq, alongside fifth-generation Arizonans, living together as humans, Americans, Arizonans, Phoenicians, members of the PCDS community. Please welcome your wonderful colleague, Winter Rapal.
On October 6th, the last day of classes before fall break, I devoted the day to finishing my senior speech. It was lighthearted and conveyed a positive message. But I went to sleep that night and awoke to a notification from my news app that Israel had been attacked. Knowing I was the next senior to give a speech, I felt compelled to talk about this. On October 7th, 2023, Hamas launched an attack on the state of Israel, declaring war. Hamas, an extremist terrorist group, claims they are fighting for their rights. It was heartbreaking to spend the day waiting for text from my family and loved ones that are in Israel, making sure they are safe. Not only was Israel attacked with rockets and other offensive military weaponry, but Hamas stormed into their kibbutz, which are known as intentional peaceful communities in Israel, and entire families were massacred, and many women and children were taken hostage. Hamas is strategically holding Israeli citizens hostage because they know Israel will hesitate to attack Gaza with Israelis being held there. And they're using Israeli children as human shields in Gaza. Additionally, that same day, Hamas opened fire at an outdoor concert. The individuals at this festival were celebrating the holiday of Sukkot. The event was promoted as a tribute to friendship, love, and ironically, peace. Innocents cried out for help as they were slaughtered to death. Many others were taken as hostages, and their whereabouts are still unknown. Can you imagine being at a concert with your friends, and then in a moment's notice, your life is forever changed? This past week, I've seen footage and listened to stories of elders being dragged out of their homes, children being beheaded, women being raped, and families killed. And all at the same time, I have to see videos of people preaching, "Don't forget where the Jews were in 1940, and preaching the extermination of all Jews. Hamas is threatening to execute the civilian hostages without any warning, and even threatening to broadcast the execution. Hamas is stealing the phones of the victims, recording their execution, and then sending the videos to the family of the victim. This lack of humanity shows the depth of evil that is mirroring the tyranny of Hitler's actions during World War II. This feels eerily similar to the dictators who decades ago attempted to rid the planet of all Jews. Shalach et ami, let my people go. Hamas is claiming they are fighting for the rights of their people and land, but the roots of Hamas's hate traces back to anti-Semitism and its long history of the persecution of Jews. Allow me to put something in perspective for you. The state of Arizona has a population of approximately 7 million people. Then imagine nearly the entire state of Arizona being slaughtered. 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. Not since the Holocaust have this many Jews been killed in a single day. I've met people who believe the Holocaust was the start of Jewish hatred, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. From the Jews fleeing Pharaoh in the 13th century BCE, to the publication of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion in 1905, which Hamas directly refers to in their charter, the roots of anti-Semitism can be traced back thousands of years. It would take days to give you the entire history of anti-Semitism, but I only have 7 to 9 minutes to enlighten you. Hate crime shootings in America, the desecration of Jewish cemeteries, and Holocaust deniers, among others, are all an abomination to society. Every single summer, I attended camp in the northern woods of Wisconsin. Over 3/4 of the girls are from the northern suburbs of Chicago, more specifically Highland Park. On July 4th, 2022, a man with anti-Semitic beliefs, equipped with an assault rifle, opened fire on a parade in Highland Park, Illinois. Before this tragedy, Highland Park was named one of the safest towns in the country, and was known for its predominantly Jewish population. News stories unfolded stating that the shooter had been planning this ambush for some time, complete with online rantings about Jews. He posted videos talking about wiping all Jews off the planet and attacked them based on his warped beliefs of anti-Semitism. Being deprived of the internet and any access to the outside world, we found out this devastating news from the camp directors. They kept it brief. Counselors with phones were not permitted to give us any detail of what had happened. I witnessed for the first time the terror Jews have felt for thousands of years. I watched as every single one of my friends feared for their family and friends' lives. Rumors spread rapidly throughout the camp, but beyond the rumors, the truth is, lives were taken for simply living and believing in being Jewish. Being one of the only ones not living in or near the suburb of Chicago, my friends turned to me for reassurance. But how was I supposed to promise them everything's going to be okay when this is the kind of world we live in? Safe towns are never safe. Places of worship are not even safe for Jews. On October 27, 2018, a believer in the white genocide conspiracy theory opened fire in a synagogue in Pittsburgh. Similar to Highland Park, the Simcha congregation is located in a town highly populated by Jews. 11 lives were taken on this Saturday morning. 11 people woke up, got ready to go to their place of worship. 11 people woke up and got ready to go to a place they deemed to be safe. These 11 individuals' lives ended because they chose to spend their Saturday morning honoring their religion. The temple I belonged to for most of my life, the temple where I was bat mitzvahed, the temple where I go to for the holiest of days, has received bomb threats in the past 30 days. This doesn't just apply to my temple. Temples everywhere, every day, are receiving these types of threats. when will it stop? It doesn't even stop at terrorizing Jews that are living. Jewish cemeteries have been desecrated and vandalized. Imagine going to pay your respects to a loved one and the grave has been covered in swastikas or has been completely destroyed. The Jewish community holds cemeteries close to our hearts as we believe that the ground is the most sacred place for the soul of the deceased. When cemeteries are being destroyed, it is done to show the lack of respect others have towards Jews. This type of anti-Semitic measure is horrifying and emotionally draining to the Jewish community. As the last remaining survivors of the Holocaust are dying off, we cannot forget the atrocities of the past. Ever since I was little, I've always been educated about the Holocaust. However, it was not until last year I learned about those who deny it. There are people out there who claim gas chambers were not real and claim that the millions of Jews that died in these concentration camps never existed. Other deniers have the audacity to claim the Jewish government fabricated the entire Holocaust in hopes of seeking out reparations. I quote from Hamas, "Jews were behind World War II, through which they made huge financial gains and paved the way for the establishment of their state. There's no war going on anywhere without them having their finger in it," end quote. These deniers cannot even let the victims rest in peace. They are still trying to strip Jews of their humanity. And this is what we're seeing happening in Israel right now. Hamas is attempting to strip the Israelis of their humanity. Aaron Morrison says it perfectly, I quote, "You don't have to be Jewish, you don't have to be Israeli, you just have to be human, to care, to love, to take a stance," end quote. People are marching in big cities such as New York, San Francisco, and Chicago, protesting in support of the Hamas government, knowing they are kidnapping, raping, and murdering innocent Israeli citizens. Hamas released pictures and videos of children burning alive, yet there are still people out there justifying this behavior. Educate yourself before inserting yourself. This isn't about Israel versus Palestine. This is about Hamas wanting to decimate the Jews and abolish peace. This is no longer about politics. Hamas is a terrorist organization with the sole purpose of annihilating the Jewish population. Your Jewish friends are terrified. Please check on them. Because like I said, there is no worse feeling than the feeling of anticipation while you wait for your family and friends in Israel to let you know they're alive. We've seen this before. We were promised never again after the Holocaust. What happened to never again, never forget? The promise was broken, and there are still people who aren't willing to speak up and people who refuse to help. History is repeating itself right in front of us. It is time for us to come together. Israel's love is stronger than hatred. I'm optimistic that peace will prevail and evil will be eradicated. It's not going to be easy, but I hope that my people and all people will be saved. Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live. Thank you.
Please come congratulate your senior speakers.
I'm so hungry. I'm like.